we had a small wood shop there, and our facilities were really great, but I didn't have access to like a laser cutter or a 3D printer or a lot of different things. So I think being left with so little, it actually kind of forced me to really play around with what was around me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've definitely been made fun of so this was like the promo is you get specifically these headphones, and it's like, I don't know, this kind of like less preferable color accommodation, but.
The blue and green?
Yeah, blue and green. Yeah.
I like it though. I would pick them up.
Nice. Good.
Yeah. All right. It matches with your shirt though. All right. I'll introduce you. I want to do a special introduction for you. Usually I don't really introduce my guests. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Not Enough Design. Today we have a very special guest. I don't usually introduce my guests, but this is a special one. Whether you're an artist or a designer, there are moments in your career where the entire trajectory of your work changes because of an influence. In terms of materials and exploration. This next guest was one of my key influences. She's an industrial designer, illustrator, beekeeper, puppeteer assistant, leather worker, and according to her RISD bio, 2024 presidential candidate, Charlotte Clement. Welcome.
Yay!
Yay!
Wow.
I read that and it was so funny.
No, I've actually often thought about, when I was back in school, I often thought about bugging Steven to take that last bit out because I thought it was just like so cringy after a while.
I thought it was funny in the moment.
Yeah, I think in the moment, I think that like I was like chatting to Steven and he was like, you should run for president. And I was like, I should run for president. I'm going to, I'll slide it in. And now
it's a stale joke.
Oh my God,
it's funny.
It's funny.
Joke. Yeah, it's funny.
Well, I hope. Yeah.
Well, maybe. Yeah, Donald Trump plans on running again in 2024, so that'll be your competition.
Oh my God.
Yeah. All right. So today, since it's your first time on here, I wanted to delve a little bit deep into your beginning, like back to the 90s, because like we've been friends for a while, but we hardly get opportunities to sit and like delve deep into each other's lives. Because we have like normal conversations,
Yeah.
So you have a varied background, you did like a BA in sculpture and you grew up in Rhode Island. So take us back there. Like you grew up in Rhode Island, then you went into your BA. Like what kind of inspired you to get that like sculpture sustainability thing? What influenced you there?
So I grew up in the suburbs of Providence, Rhode Island. I think so. My mother is a midwife, and my father he's like an intense baking guy. He works for Bank of America, and going like way back. My dad I think my dad always wanted to pursue his passion, but he definitely, I think, he definitely had to adjust his lifestyle to, to raise a family. And
What was his passion?
Yeah, medieval French literature.
Damn.
Yeah, that he was like gearing up to get his PhD in medieval French literature at Oxford of all places. Like it was like fucking
hardcore.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he actually, he decided not to pursue the full PhD, and then got a banking job in little old Rhode Island because somebody else, got a job there. Anyway, I basically, my parents were always really, really good about stressing the arts on my siblings and I. And so, and it almost became part of my identity. Like I don't know, I was like that artsy kid in high school. I knew that I was going to go to school and do some kind of art situation. Like I just knew it. And, I got into RISD for my undergrad, and I decided not to go. I decided instead to go to a liberal arts school, so I could have I was experimenting with different things. Like I wanted to be like an anthropologist, and I don't know. Anyway, but I mean, just growing up in Providence or outside of Providence a ways, and just having that kind of being so close to RISD influences you one way or another. So, like when I was little, when I was like 5, I took classes at RISD. I have all of these drawings of like the big Buddha, in the art museum. And I think I have this kind of like funny relationship with the university because like I knew deep down that I was always going to go there at some point in my life. It's a little twisted actually. And I mean, it's great that I did it, but yeah, I don't know. I always felt kind of starstruck by the school a little bit.
Was it like a little intimidating for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was just one of those things. Like I, would like walk around College Hill, like when I was, a freshman in high school, getting my like coffee with my friends. And I don't know, it just always felt right. I always knew I was going to go there someday. I think maybe not starstruck is the right word, but like definitely that feeling that you get when you go to like when you're looking at colleges and you see one and you're like, oh my God, look at all those kids. Like that person's going to be the new Basquiat, and like that person's going to be like so-and-so and so-and-so. And, maybe that's Steve Jobs or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I just fell in love with the school day one. And I think that started from like drawing Buddha in the museum.
How was your experience during your like undergrad? So what was that mix? Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I went to a very small liberal arts school. It's in New Jersey, very close to Manhattan. And it was lovely. The facilities were beautiful. It's called like the University in the Forest because there are just like a bajillion trees and deer.
Wow.
Yeah, for being that close to the city, it was definitely a little gem. And the art program was lesser known, but I think I just really wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted. Like I knew that I was going to pursue fine art, but I just wanted the flexibility to like, I was thinking a lot about sociology and anthropology and like, and science. And, so I, but, I think ultimately it did come down to the fine arts. I took a lot of studio classes, like, like sculpture and printmaking. And, it's definitely, because it's such a small school, there's less access to different things. So for instance, I really kind of honed in on sculpture towards the end, and we had a small wood shop there, and our facilities were really great, but I didn't have access to like a laser cutter or a 3D printer or a lot of different things. So I think being left with so little, it actually kind of forced me to really play around with what was around me. So I started to really just get into relying on things that didn't require any kind of machinery. So I actually got really, at the time I loved Ava Hess. Ava Hess, I loved Ava Hess, and I had kind of there was a very dark part of me. So Ava Hess was a brilliant sculptor, did a lot of work in latex and resin. Also a great painter too. Just all around, a really cool artist. So Ava Hess ended up dying of brain cancer when she was, I think, in her early to mid 30s, just because of the nature of the materials that she was using. And I think I was just always fascinated by the toxicity of materials and that like intense relationship that you can have with something. Like, she just, she worked in latex and resin because like those, and her sculptures are amazing. They're haunting. They're beautiful. They're so cool. But I don't know. I think I was just a little bit dark. I think I was playing with the devil a little bit. Yeah. So
that reminds me of like, there's this glass artist, I forget her name, but she was in the latest season of Blown Away on Netflix. And she has this condition in her retina. So she's losing her vision, and definitely the bright glass and the all the the what's that called, the glory hole and everything is really not helping that. So that's kind of like exacerbating her condition. But it's like the material that she loves, and there's always this like dark romanticism to like being killed by what you love, Lots of drummers like go deaf. A lot of those things, yeah. But coming from your undergrad to RISD, I want to talk about that. But before that, it's like I want to address the fact that we viewed this podcast brought to you by the Rhode Island School of Design.
You should really get a sponsorship, yeah.
Yeah. The way we viewed RISD is so different. You kind of grew up sort of like surrounded by RISD in a way, like in its like shadow almost. It was like this overarching character in your life. For me, I had no idea what RISD was. Like I studied economics. I was a consultant. And then when applying for design school, I Googled like the top 10 and I applied. And then I got through only 2. And that is the moment I like Googled RISD to choose between Central St. Martin's and RISD. Mm-hmm. So I Googled both the colleges and I was like, which one's better? And then I figured out and I was like, wow, this is it's a pretty cool college. Yeah. I originally wanted to go to our arch nemesis, Pratt. But your brother goes to Pratt, though.
Oh, Parsons. He went to Parsons.
Oh, Parsons. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
No, he actually works at Parsons now. He's
really?
He's a print tech.
That's awesome.
At Parsons. It is. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm proud of him. Yeah. He just got the vaccine, which is great. Yeah.
That's awesome. The first one, did your dad get it too, or?
No, my mom, because she's in the medical field, she got it like ages ago. Yeah. But
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We'll all get there someday.
We will. Yeah. So what
But
kind of
anyway,
like,
yeah.
okay, now a lot of this makes sense because I know like RISD Charlotte. I didn't know all of the pre-RISD Charlotte, right? Now, like all of your work and the way you work kind of is starting to make sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, you're super into materials, but you're also like thrifty with it, you know?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't know, like there was this one project of yours that I really love, which is kind of like it was a kind of contested project, rather. I would say it became one. The orange peel exploration.
Oh God.
Right. But
Yeah.
you know, we loved it, right? But the thing was, like, it was so eye-opening that you could push one material to do so many different kinds of things. And that kind of opened up the entire door for you, you know, you working at the nature lab and all of those things. But we'll get to that. But it's like super interesting to understand how like not having a lot of things kind of pushed you to do more with what you have, which was like the crux of my thesis in a way.
Yeah.
So how did that like influence what you did at RISD? But so now you have like everything, right?
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. So how'd you like deal with that? Did that change your practice or?
Well, yeah, so taking it way back, you know, so back in undergrad, I basically honed in and spent a lot of time working with, I love paper mache. I love paper mache. And so I kind of had I made my own recipe, and I, you know, just used a fuck ton of polyurethane. I don't know if I can swear on this, but you know, we'll see. Okay, great. So I used a bunch of polyurethane and and latex, and and a lot of like kind of, you know, I found things like I made these, these kind of textured wall hangings that were a bit kind of creature-like, and I ended up dipping a lot of like, you know, stones in latex and cheesecloth, and then would kind of take them out and then have this like cool shell, and like, I mean, it was just basically like, you know, just a lot of playing and a lot of experimentation, and I think that self-discovery is just so important as a designer and as an artist. And I think to a degree yes, like knowing the machines, it's, you know, it's wonderful, it's powerful, like, you know, it can do so many great things. But yeah, I mean, I think loosely a lot of my feature, a lot of it was based on this, you know, this like weird latex polyurethane body of work that I made. I moved to Oregon straight after school, and you know, and I was considering finding a job either in the arts or in something, you know, kind of in agriculture, so to speak, and then I ended up working for a beekeeping company, and I think I got the job because my sculptures looked like beehives to a degree, and yeah, and then you know, and then once I started kind of like, you know, really, I mean, you know, I really starting to understand, you know, beekeeping and food systems and that kind of work, and then also just being able to admire the work of bees, and like, you know, they're like the original amazing architects. Like it's
Which year was this?
This was 2013. I graduated from college in 2013.
All right.
And then, so maybe like I dabbled in juicing, and I also worked for Big Nazo in Providence, which is also a fun material thing. They do some fun stuff with materials.
Wait, expand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
You said
Big
juicing?
Nazo. Oh, juicing.
What, like in your kitchen, industrial juicing? What?
No, I worked, I think Portland suited me very well because I have been able to check off all of the quirky jobs. You know, like here, not like, you know, there are definitely other people with lots of other quirky, you know, jobs, but, I moved after college. I moved back home for the summer, and I got three jobs. One was working for a glass artist in Jamestown, which I kind of blew off and I completely regret. I think I was just too busy. And then, the other one was working for the puppeteer Big Nazo in Providence. And then the last one was working for a juice bar in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. And I loved that job. It was like, I think it was like kind of around the time that juicing was becoming a real, like a, you know, it was starting to become a craze. And so people, when they walked into the shop, would just be so happy and curious and just wanted to, like, you know, learn so much more about, like, you know, these ingredients. And and the store started, the restaurant basically started because one of the owner's fathers died of cancer, and the owners basically just tried to, like, you know, juice to get this guy to, you know, to live. And I think, you know, eventually he passed, but like, I think it, you know, it increased his, it increased his, you know, life to a degree. But I mean, anyway, it just was kind of infectious, and like I, you know, consumed a lot of wheatgrass, and I would end up like making all these like fun concoctions. And
wait, what's your favorite juice recipe? Like a go-to?
Well, I tended to, so whenever somebody would order a juice, you juice, you know, you get all these, you know, ingredients, you cut them, you juice them, you put them in like a blender or like the juicer or whatever. And, you know, whatever didn't fit into the cup, you know, you could consume.
Okay.
And so I kind of would like to like mix things together, which was fun. At that point I started to, because I was drinking so much juice, I think it was also a detox from like, you know, from like drinking in college, which was great. But, we used to do this thing. They were called like hot shots, where you have a mixture of like lemon and cayenne and coconut water, and something else too. I don't quite remember. And you would just take a shot, and it was almost like it almost replaced coffee.
You could get a kick out of that, like.
Yeah.
Shot of cayenne in the morning. That doesn't sound nice.
Oh no. So actually I taught Meg this, and she became obsessed that she would, so typically this is just like a little 4-ounce shot. And then, I taught Meg this, and she started to drink like full glasses of this. Like it was kind of insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I think generally like anything kind of green with some cucumber and apple is awesome, but you know, yeah.
Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense why you ordered that beet carrot drink cocktail at the bar. Like a juice hangover. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I to this day, like I love juices. Like I just think they're
Yeah.
so good. For a while, when I moved to Portland, and I was, looking for a job, I moved in with a family who had an aunt who was dying of stomach cancer. And I didn't actually know that she was dying of stomach cancer. I just knew that she was, not doing very well. She basically just wasn't eating. All she wanted to do was drink alcohol. And so the family I was living with asked me to basically to juice for her and to come up with different kinds of recipes where were basically like intense, nutritious cocktails, with some alcohol, but then also with all of these beneficial ingredients, and then and then other things like molasses. So that way, she could, her calorie intake could be much higher, because she just wasn't really eating anything. And, and I think it went okay, but I think that she was just in so much pain that she just, at a certain point, she didn't really eat or drink anything. And she eventually passed away. Like, I think within maybe 4 months of me living there. Yeah. It wasn't a direct result of my juicing. It was obviously.
Yeah, you didn't kill her, but
I did not kill her. No.
Those juice cocktails sound like a good business venture for you. Dude, that's fascinating. Juice and the
yeah.
the reason to start making healthy cocktails.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
I think the closest popular one would be Bloody Mary. That's the only one I can think of. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I think, we're essentially in this moment of time where people are starting to I just think our food groups are blending. People are starting to have soup for breakfast, and I don't know. I mean, why can't cocktails be healthy? Why can't they have activated charcoal and all the other fabulous crap to make you, I don't know, fly like a butterfly? I don't know. But I mean, why, I think that there's definitely a lot of potential there. I mean, all of these food groups, they can be manipulated in a way where, you can, they're flexible, they can be juiced, they can be jellified, they can turn into any different, so many different forms and things. So that way, you can drink your bone broth juiced, Bloody Mary with bell peppers and whatever, and have a whole meal and a drink with your alcohol, and it all could be local. I don't know.
Oh my God. You're making me very excited, because it's been this dream of mine ever since. This is 10 years. Okay. I've been dreaming of opening this cafe, and it's not it's not like an ordinary cafe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a special kind of cafe that does things, that does weird things. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And this sounds very exciting. We should talk about that. But I totally agree with you in terms of just forms. For a second, if you just said whatever you were talking about instead of food, if you spoke about materials, it would still hold the same value and still be true. If you just look at food as material, and then even alcohol is just a fermented form of some sort of a food item, right?
Yeah.
Usually. So why not mix vodka with something I don't know, what goes well with potatoes, tomatoes, right? Wait, isn't a Bloody Mary tomato and vodka? There you go. French fries in a drink form. right?
I mean, it's just going to continue to become more blended, I think.
I think so. Yeah, maybe it's like it's better for your hangovers too, maybe. We should get drunk on veggie cocktails and try waking up the next day.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, totally.
I will hold you to that. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that as a group. Let's all do that. This is an experiment. There we go. Next time you're on, we'll discuss the results. Very exciting stuff.
That sounds great. No, I mean, Meg is, so her new, I mean, we've all developed these kind of like funny quarantine hobbies, right? Meg's quarantine hobby is discovering regional distilleries, and she's gotten really, really into whiskey. So much so that she's joined like a local like whiskey women's chapter, and like she'll have she'll have like a meeting every other week where like she's given all this garb and you taste things, and it's really lovely actually. But
so just for the listeners, Meg's your partner.
Yes, it's true. That's true.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yes.
So what did you do after that? You did these like little odd jobs all over the place. That was like before getting into RISD.
I've definitely had my fair share of odd jobs. I think the bulk of what I really did, I was working, I basically, so let's see, timeline, graduated from college, juicery, puppeteer, and then moved to Portland, and then I worked in like a sandwich shop for like 2 days.
2 days?
It's fucking terrible.
Did you quit?
Okay, I did. I made a scene. I quit and then I made a scene. It was
what did you do? Did you have a meltdown or?
No, so the sandwich shop is called Big Town Hero. I think it's a regional chain. And I think the guy basically, if anybody's listening and anybody lives in the Portland area, this was the Big Town Hero on Sandy, I think around like 17th or something like that. And anyway, the guy who owned it and who managed it was a complete and total ass. And he just was very, very terrible to his employees, and it was very detectable within like a day of working there. And so I kind of just like flipped out and quit and left. And I think I did that like in lunch hour, lunch hour. So kind of left him in a tricky spot, but yeah.
But fuck him.
Oh yeah.
Being a dick. But like,
oh, definitely.
Yeah. Anybody who meets you wouldn't know that you have this edge, but you do have do you have like this like suppressed anger that you kind of like bring out at times, or no?
Sometimes it's not super crazy. I think that I've got this like, I can get like, there can be some inner anger, maybe a little bit of a competitive edge too, I would say. Mm-hmm. For instance, I recently applied to a job that I thought I would be really, really good at, and not to be cocky, but I really did. And so I applied to the job, and a day later got a message saying like, it was, when I read it, it felt very dismissive. It was basically just like, we decided to go with applicants who have the skills that match this job. And I was just kind of just like, fuck that. Like, I definitely have skills that match this job. So this, maybe they were looking for some other big or specific skills, but like, I don't know. I was very, at the time, I like literally just woke up and I read this thing, and then I don't know. Well, I don't know. I just was like, kind of just like, fuck that. And then I like wrote this like intense, like I wrote this like well executed, I might add, intense email saying, this is why I do believe that I could excel at this job, and this is why I think you're wrong. But thank you for your time. Being
You wrote
polite.
back. That is so kick-ass. I would just be pissed and like take it out on something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have a lot of feelings about like the job market and how people recruit, and they look for they try to like I don't know, they try to put somebody in a box, and usually the box is defined by their idea of who that person should be, but a lot of the times it's not that person, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe if you're looking at a strategist with 10 years of experience who's at least like 40 years of age, maybe a 32-year-old would be a better strategist because his life experiences was such that he's better equipped for that job. But since you're looking for a 40-year-old, you kind of dismiss a 32-year-old, which is like to the benefit of nobody, you know?
Yeah, no, it's, and I think that, I think specifically, I think a lot of people don't quite understand what industrial design is. And
they don't.
They don't. And so I'm trying to figure out as I move forward in, you know, my career search, like I'm trying to figure out how to how to rebrand myself to describe what I can do, but not use industrial design at all.
It's very hard to like put yourself in a box as well, because you're multidisciplinary. It's hard. You know, I don't know. We'll see. We'll get there. It's fine.
Yeah. All right, back to your time.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely did like a tangent for sure.
Yeah, no, tangents are cool. It's fun.
All right, good. All right, good. Well, so I worked in beekeeping for just shy of 4 years. So that was kind of like the main, like my main job. And then on the side, I worked at a local gallery. On the side, I kind of just did these other different things, you know, like I started to, like I would sell drawings. I think it was just kind of like, you know, I was trying to find myself a little bit. So like, you know, I had this one job and then was playing around with other things. And then the business, the beekeeping business I worked for, well, it was sort of like a startup that essentially went under, and then that's kind of when I realized like I should probably go back to school, and I took some time off, you know.
Okay, let's like stop there for a sec and take another tangent. Let's take a beekeeping tangent, because what you did for that beekeeping startup was super interesting. And also because I read up on some beekeeping stuff because you were coming. So I need to like get that out of my system. Okay.
Okay, let's do it. All right.
So timeline wise, you were like working on the beekeeping thing at around like 2013. So according to my research, there's this American beekeeper, David Hackenberg, I believe. Who first stumbled upon CCD, that was colony collapse disorder, where all the bees were just like, I'm going to get out of here. And that was like around 2006, 2007. So like 7 years before you joined this company. And around the time you joined, it was like the bees were coming back, which is kind of odd. And nobody knows why they went away or like why they came back. But when they did come back, you know, this is something that you talk about quite often, is that their numbers are still on a decline.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so do you think like what I read about the decline of the bees, there are many factors. Like in the wild, it's obviously climate change is like the reason for almost everything. You can tie everything to climate change. kind of, but a bigger reason was like deforestation. But there's a interesting catch-22 here, is because with the decline of the bees, it is gonna impact our ability to produce food. Like, so it's gonna, we won't be able to grow enough food in a way. But the reason the reason we're clearing the forest is to like have more land for agriculture. So it's like we're locked in this like weird battle. But so then the domestic bees come in. With the domestic bees, then it shouldn't be those reasons, climate change, deforestation, because they're like really taken care of. But apparently the decline in the domestic bees is because of, they call it like the 3 Ps or something. So it's pesticide, poor nutrition, and parasites. All right. This is like super, super fascinating. All right. So pesticides, not much to explain there, because when the bees, they go and they get their nectar from the plants, the pesticides kind of fuck with their ability to navigate. And so the chemicals mess with the chemicals in the brain, which is not good. So it's like the health kind of declines. And poor nutrition, because apparently they only feed the bees like one kind of a diet, which is like if we just lived off of potato chips, we wouldn't be doing so well. So the bee also suffers there. And now it opens up, their immunity opens up to the 3rd P, which is a parasite. There's this mite. This is like, this is depressing. The mite hops onto the back of the bee, injects this venom, which dissolves the insides of the bee. And the mite just slurps it up like a bee slushy. So all of this shit is like fucking up the bee thing. And then what you told me about your startup is wild. They were trying to put, I won't take away your thunder, but they were trying to put honey on tap.
It's complicated. Okay,
let's go.
All right, wait. Are you finished?
I am done. That's all. That's what I learned. Was it good?
It was good. Yeah. You. How long were you researching this? That was good. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Just quick reading. Yeah.
I love it. The world of honeybees and beekeeping and pollination. It's very interesting. There are so many things to pick apart, and I have a billion things to say on all of the things that you were talking about. But essentially I to bring it back, I worked for this. It was a Portland-based beekeeping company, which essentially manufactured the physical hive structures which allow humans to keep bees. So, so technically hives.
Kind of like commercializing domestic bees in a way, like.
So.
Oh, that's so weird. Yeah. I'm getting this image of instead of buying honey in jars, you just buy a beehive and have the bees kind of be your personal honey making.
Oh my God. So many people, dude, so many people did that. So, okay. Okay, Rohit, there's a lot, we could have a bajillion episodes on this stuff. Let's have a beekeeping podcast. Okay.
Right.
So
totally
rolling up my sleeves here. So basically, I should send you this book. I've got a really great book on the history of beehives. I should send it to you. So these physical hive structures allow humans to be able to care for bees, to be able to interact with them, in these specific ways. And so, there are many different experimental hive designs. But the one that is most well known to the common, person in North America is called the Langstroth hive. And that's the kind of like, rectangular hive that relies on boxes to be stacked. And, and the idea
And you kind of
is
like
that
pull them out like drawers, right? That's the one, or no?
No. Yeah. So the idea is basically you organize them in a specific way, and depending, so like a lot of different, kinds of things in agriculture, you talk to, you have a room full of beekeepers, and then you have like a bajillion different ways to actually take care of bees. Like, there are a lot of politics in the beekeeping world in terms of like, the right or the wrong way to take care of bees, So, so anyway, basically these boxes, house, frames with either a ridge where bees can build, comb, and that wax comb allows them to be able to, lay eggs and store pollen, and then, eventually, produce honey. So there's either slats, or there are full, these full sheets of wax, with these man-made imprints of hexagons. And the idea is that I always found it to be really disturbing, but that's greatly contested within the beekeeping world. This is called foundation. And so the business that I worked for was one that hated that as well. And so that was basically, it promoted the idea of foundationless, treatment-free beekeeping. So, there's a beekeeper, his name is Michael Bush. For anybody listening, recommend looking up Michael Bush. He's kind of a funny dude, but I did one of my portfolio projects to get into RISD on Michael Bush.
Okay.
He's a character. But nonetheless, basically the idea is that, you want that nutrition thing is really important for bees. So monoculture and, how we have developed agriculture is really definitely not helping, bee populations. And, it's definitely not helping colony collapse disorder. And obviously climate change is related to all of this shit. Obviously it's very much so tied to our, the way that we grow food. And I'm going on a tangent.
No, go for it. Yeah.
So basically treatment-free beekeeping encourages bees to, to not be consuming artificial honey, to be basically building their own, comb, which is much healthier and is a natural preventative against the varroa mite. There are all of these different studies that, that kind of prove that the kind of treatment-free beekeeping, can be quite positive for beekeeping, for bee populations.
So that is something the startup you work for was for, in a way. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not perfect. Treatment-free beekeeping is definitely synonymous with the idea of letting them die. So, it's also hard because all of these bee populations, the ones that, let's say are, potentially infected with varroa mites or whatever, these kind of weaker colonies, treatment-free beekeeping, technically, wants to get rid of these weaker colonies. So therefore the stronger colonies, can take over, and the stronger genes can take over. And, so anyway, it's very fascinating stuff. Moving on. So the business I worked for, manufactured these hives, and did a lot of education within the United States, and beyond, surrounding what is treatment-free beekeeping, And, we basically manufactured these hives and sold them all over the place. And when you manufacture and sell, when you are, a public facing company, you sell something that, requires such specific knowledge, you also need to, figure out how to like explain to people how to use it. And so therefore a great component of the business was all about, essentially teaching people how to keep bees. And,
right, okay.
And so, so we had a very strong local presence. We taught a lot of classes. We had this like beautiful retail store, which, was like my baby. We had a strong presence online and kind of like internationally as well. It was very cool. So basically the business went on Shark Tank. Didn't get a deal, but through going on Shark Tank, was able to connect with another beekeeping company at the time. At the same time, the flow hive was becoming a big thing. So the flow hive is that hive that you turn a tap and then honey flows out, and that basically at the time was like the highest grossing Kickstarter. I think they asked for a pretty, I forget how much they asked for, but they ended up getting like $12 million, like, intensely surpassing their goals. They're based in Australia. And, and so we didn't get a deal on Shark Tank, but people watched the episode, and I think nobody got a deal. And so a lot of like, a lot of people were, were publicly criticizing the sharks in the episode for like giving nobody deals. And then Damien, who was very interested in the product, but then said no, eventually, Damien started to kind of kindle this relationship with the owner of the company, the company that I worked for. And he like in a Facebook post, like put together, the company I worked for and then the Flow Hive. And then that kind of like put the dots together. And then, my company and the Flow Hive started working with each other. And basically they created this like inner structure foundation technology where instead of just a slat, which is treatment free, just having bees build their own comb from a guide, versus, typical beekeeping, which is, having bees build from like a sheet of plastic or a sheet of wax with the hex imprints. Mm-hmm. And then
so that slat was developed by Flow Hive in Australia.
And then the idea is it's just like this beefy plastic hexagonal structure that allows you to to turn to use a hex bolt to stick inside and to turn something, and then all of a sudden this in the plastic structure it shifts, and then the honey stores kind of open, and then honey kind of flows through, and then it flows into your tap and into your jar. And this design was highly contested. It was very interesting. It was highly contested by the general public, because because it's just another man-made thing that's just taking over a natural phenomenon, but at this which is weird, and and I think that it kind of took a lot of what beekeeping was, and then kind of like turned it up like a bajillion notches in terms of like what are the things you can how can you manipulate a hive.
Right. So is that
But
one of the reasons that they kind of tanked the company?
no. So these definitely. I mean, like, you know, it's important. So these still are definitely two different companies. So the Flow Hive is still around. My company is not so much. So yeah, basically the Flow. I don't necessarily want to publicly talk about exactly all of the things that, like,
Of course, yeah.
happened with the business that I worked for. You know, I think that we, you know, I think that it was just like, you know, like a lot of, I think we just stretched ourselves too thin. You know, I think it was like a lot of like some poor decision making mixed with some bad, you know, mixed with some like kind of bad deals. Yeah,
So where do you think like all of this is going with the bees? Is it like a bleak future?
I think it's complicated. I mean, I think a lot of people who want to become beekeepers, that's awesome, you know, but I think that you know, a lot of people want to become backyard beekeepers, which is, you know, really, really great. And it is kind of like an amazing experience to, you know, to take care of a hive. And I have one in my backyard. Like it's so cool. You know, and I think, you know, it was like a fad, like a lot of people started doing it. You know, beyond keeping bees commercially for different reasons. There is really a lot to unpack here. But I would say, I think that there are a lot of people keeping bees without the support that they need. And it's not one of those things that you can just kind of like, you know, fuck around with. Like, you know, like you really need to do your homework. And, and so I think that, I mean, I think that can be a little bit dangerous, but like, I think, you know, and I think that we really need to be paying attention to native bee populations. So, you know, for instance, bumblebees and mason bees, like those, you know, those are going extinct and arguably, so honeybees are not technically native to North America. Yeah, honeybees are actually fairly new to North America. And so, I mean, it's just arguably more important to be paying attention to these kind of native bee populations. So, you know, so I think, yeah.
I mean, you know, we keep hearing that, you know, the bees are dying, but I heard like an interesting theory on that. It's like a lot of the species will eventually die off as a part of the natural extinction process. And as a part of that greater plan, 25% of that is going to affect all flying insects, and bees are a part of it. So in a way, it's kind of like a natural future, maybe. But I don't believe that bees will go extinct. That's something I don't believe.
No, I mean, I think we really need to reassess, you know, how we grow food today. And we really, and, you know, you as a listener really should start to plant, you know, bee friendly, you know, plants in your yard, and don't use pesticides, like ever. Don't use pesticides. And, you know, and I think, you know, start learning about your native bees, and like, you know, maybe keep a mason bee hive. Those are easy. Those are simple, but then also absolutely support your local beekeeper, you know?
And at the end of the day, like it's all about a system that affects everything, right? It's not one thing, not just climate change is affecting the bee population, you know, it's like everything. So anything you do can like help assist the whole situation, because there are like many stakeholders in this. So not one person or one body can fix it. There you go. And so let's get back to like the RISD moment here. So
Yeah.
Now I'm like starting to understand like your whole, it's so interestingly clear to me in some ways, just like from a third person point of view, looking at your work and, of working with bees. Yes. That was such like an industrial design moment when you spoke about like the construction of the beehive and all of those things, but also your material work is kind of like, I'm sure you'll get into it, but kind of like so weirdly related to juicing. Like
true.
somewhere the act of juicing different things and throwing away the peels. I don't know, did that?
Oh yeah, no, my juicing experience definitely informs that project for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Talk about RISD.
I mean, both my fine art background and then my background, I think most specifically in beekeeping, and then my love of like handmade things, definitely influenced me to pursue a grad degree in ID. And I didn't, when I entered into the program, I think I was warned that it was a bit loosey-goosey, and like I think if I was warned that like if I didn't really quite know what I was going to be doing, then like I still might not be sure of what I'm doing, and like it's quite true actually. No, but I basically entered into in RISD with I made a portfolio which was mainly all about beekeeping in one way or another. And I entered in thinking that I was going to do work in agriculture and sustainability and materials and I was also at the time becoming very, very interested in like local food systems. So I stuck with it through and through. I mean, I did want to become like I wanted to master like all of the crafts. So like I wanted to like, learn metals and become like a really good woodworker. And like, so I wanted to do all of the, making and material based things, but then there was definitely like a lot of, I think a lot of sustainability and systems thinking as well. So, do you want to interject? I don't know. I feel like on tangents. Yeah.
The first time we kind of worked together at RISD, first of all, that's a very fascinating origin story. And the first time we kind of worked together was the alternative metals class during winter session.
Yeah.
It's one of the student taught classes taught by a furniture grad. And that is when like Material Charlotte was unleashed. And we did kind of crazy shit. We took it to a whole other level. And I remember Kay was so, Kay probably thought we were crazy when we were trying to like, all right, so we had this exercise when we had to weld different kinds of metals. So we were welding copper. We tried welding brass. No, we didn't weld brass because brass is poisonous. You can't weld brass because it releases a fume, right? And we were welding steel. And aluminum. That is it. Aluminium. So welding aluminum is super tough because it has such a low heat, kind of like melting point. It melts too much while you try to weld it. So Charlotte was like, it melts so easy. It's like super cool to kind of to use for casting. And I was like, yeah, totally. So we took all the protective gloves and eye protection and all that. We made sure, but and so we went to the welding station and we kind of overheated the aluminum, so it became a puddle of aluminum, and we poured it right on the table, and made these like solid puddles of aluminum. And then we later learned that aluminum is such a sticky metal in its like molten form that it sticks to your skin if it ever splashes, and it won't stop till it like burns a hole through your, whatever it lands on. So fun.
Yeah. I mean, ignorance is bliss, right? Like, I don't think we knew
Totally.
that.
No.
Yeah. That class, oh gosh, that was definitely a memorable class at RISD. I mean, I think that the idea of winter session alone was really lovely, just being able to like explore a topic without any kind of, without having to juggle a bajillion other classes and requirements or whatever. That was cool. And I think that it was a great recipe for us to just like, really go at it. Like, I loved that class. We had a really great teacher, but I think that, that is definitely a prime example of like, how it's really, really important to be able to dedicate time to exploring what a material can do, that will definitely inform one's craft. And
it's kind of hard for a lot of people to like do that, because when you're exploring material, there's no end point unless unless you have something in mind that you want to achieve something. If you blindly explore, you could explore forever.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, I mean, that's the beauty of like, that's also the beauty of it. Like I say, especially something so complicated, like, like metals, like, oh my God, somebody could be thinking about that forever.
And that kind of inspired like my glass practice as well, the metals class.
Yeah.
Because then I tried to mix all the metal bits with molten glass to kind of like color them and change their like physical properties. So it went on like a whole mad scientist route of like exploring glass, but it led to this very cool set of lamps. So you never know like what kind of inspires what,
Exactly. And I mean that, you never know like what is it about whatever thing you're doing. I mean, something will spark somewhere. And I think to some degree it's just about experience. It's about, learning. Yes, of course it's about like, I think a good piece of art, or a good piece of design, like it can't just be about making something beautiful. Like, it has to have some kind of, there has to be something else behind it. Or, so it's definitely a healthy dose of like understanding the world. I think, it's just, I think that muscle memory, is, I don't know, it's so important. Just continuing to try something, continuing to like, to fail or, just purely play. You just never know like what little thing is going to take you. Like I'm doing ceramics right now, and like I'm figuring out that the forms I'm making now are like very related to the forms I made in my undergrad. And it's weird. Yeah.
There are two things that I truly believe. One is like a project is never done.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Like if you take a finished project and you pick it back up again, you can totally change its form, its material, whatever. It's only done when you like give up on it or you think it's enough for now, in a way.
Yeah.
But also something that's very important is that when when I see a lot of designer, this is not like a, I'm not taking down any designer or artist or anything, but a lot of the times when designers design, I'm going to be very careful about what I say right now, but
Okay. Nice. Good.
they do take into account material, but if they're in a hurry, that's one of the first things they kind of reject. But the material that you pick for your object, or this can translate very easily into digital design as well, but whatever you pick, that is the process of design. The design isn't just like conceiving something and then making something. At each step of that process, whatever you pick, be it like a tool or a material, that is as big a part of it as what you put at the end of it, right? So tools, they lend that, each tool lends a mark. So this is something that is driven into you the more you work with like physical objects rather than digital objects as well, but then it translates very well from physical to digital because the world kind of did go from that. And so if you follow the same trajectory, you become like, I think you become a more, how do I put this? Like sensitive to what you do and what you pick up and what you reject. And I feel like material is the most important thing right now because there's an answer to climate change in that, in what you pick up as a designer or as an engineer or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's the one that's the most, it's hard and it's so, it's obviously so contested because, we have, towns and cities and countries, that, whose economies are, rise and fall with the use of a material. And I think that's when I think that is especially when it becomes so hard. And obviously climate change, obviously our planet, that's so important. And I think that, I think it's hard when a company is, looking down at the brass tacks of, thinking like, all right, I need this to cost this much money, so I have to do it this way, or like this is the easiest way to do it. Like I'm looking into like designing an alternative egg carton, so that it is like 20 cents a carton. So basically, this one chicken farmer can donate their egg surplus to the food bank. It's just kind of a funny little project, but I mean, the easiest thing for me to do would just be like to find a company online and like, have it ordered, and manufactured in like, China or whatever, and I don't know. It's just so extreme. This, the weird web that we live in.
Because it's like, it's so all of this, systems, like everything's related to everything. And so all of this is again related back to the economy and back to like capitalism. And, and a lot of people like try to fight capitalism, which was always so weird to me. Like even because I've studied economics and I can tell you this, Karl Marx right there, he fucking loved capitalism. All right. I'm like exaggerating it, but he didn't have a problem with capitalism per se. He just had a problem that the way capitalism was set up, profits equated with some member of that balance being discriminated against. That was the issue. But socialism also has its downfalls. And that is, this is like a hot topic, right? But I'm gonna like make I'm gonna make all my 10 listeners pissed off right now. But
no, what are you gonna say?
But socialism won't work ever. Okay. In the form that it is right now. And that is the reason why it's about 30 countries have tried it. They've all failed and come back to capitalism. It's just the way we're used to progress and the way we're used to technological development. It's not possible right now in any other economic system other than capitalism. Everything's going to get slowed down because of it. And yeah, capitalism, obviously every system has its good and bad, but coming back to my point, a lot of designers try to fight capitalism in order to make the world a better place, which is really dumb because as a designer, like you won't be able to change capitalism. You're fighting against like a ghost, right? It's something that's in thin air, but everything is kind of derived by it. Anything I pick up is a product of capitalism. So like, instead of like fighting it, we should like from the inside kind of combat and design in a way such that it benefits those shortcomings of the economic system. Way that is to say that when you find an alternative material that is good for the environment, there's such a high chance that it won't work because it's not cheap enough.
Yeah.
And then it's like shelved. And so instead of putting all your money into making this amazing amazing material that'll never be used, the money should be kind of spread out between making a material that's better, but also making an infrastructure that makes it cheaper. To like find that balance is what's gonna kind of slowly help us get back. It's always a slow part. This is not gonna be an instant fix. Yeah, man.
I mean, it's hard and it's not perfect. And I think that like, as all of the young designers out there kind of go into the world and start making things that, actually need to be produced in some way or another. It's hard when you lose those like, like just thinking about brass tacks, like it can't be that expensive, and then those cool green materials. Like I hate how it's just so elitist, like, whenever we're designing, we have to think about accessibility. Like I think that, designing for accessibility is most important, and designing to make sure that something is not that expensive is very important.
Also have humility in your materials. Like what you said is true. Read Victor Papanek, kids.
There you go.
There you go. But like, as a designer who's like so hands-on, like how have you been dealing with the whole pandemic and like the shutdown of studios and all that?
Well, I think that, when everything really started to happen, I definitely was in some kind of a shock, for many different reasons. Like, obviously, I think the biggest thing was just like mourning the loss of this degree as we knew it, and like, and the cohort. And I think it was mainly, the studios, studios, super sad. That was really difficult. Yeah. But I actually, I think that I actually fared better than some others, in the sense that I kind of went back to that like scrappy attitude of like, finding what I need in my surroundings. So, and it actually really did very well in my work anyway, because I was like so deeply focused on, I don't know. I was like super into like scavenging for shit. So, that was, so like that was fine. I think, I got really upset specifically. I was, I was in a machine knitting class, and it was an excellent class. And I think, you know, part of the reason why I went to RISD too was, you know, just being able to access these, you know, these machines and, you know, accessing, like having the ability to access these, you know, materials like, you know, like glass or like, you know, metals, which I didn't really have any experience with before. So I, you know, took this machine knitting class, which was a lovely class, an absolute lovely class. And, you know, and I mean, it's just amazing how this like one machine can like be able to produce so much, especially as you know, become more aware of how to adjust things, and, you know, you can make more complicated things. You know, that definitely speaks to the limitations of one's own hand versus like, you know, using this machine. Because when the pandemic hit, post-pandemic, machine knitting became hand knitting, which was lovely in its own way. And I learned that I could actually make a lot of things, you know, with my hands, the way that I could make things, you know, maybe not the way that I could make things on the machine, but I could definitely make the same things. It would just take like a bajillion years longer. And like, you know, it just would take way too long. Anyway, that's all being said, like all to say that I think it was a bit of both. I think it was I think it was both, you know, depressing, but then I also think that I found a lot of comfort in that space. Like, I think I really enjoyed just being able to like, you know, sit in my room and like produce everything.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the COVID definitely created this silence, and it's kind of calming if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like the shutdown of, just the analogy of like a knitting machine or like a machine knitting. Yeah. And then going back to your roots in a way. And if you remember, like, and again, this is like an important thing. I really believe that understanding is more important than just doing. Like, yeah, knitting with the use of a huge machine is amazing. But also that understanding how that works allowed me to kind of turn my dining table into a loom when I made that rug out of plastic bags, because I didn't have access to it. But it's just like understanding how the whole thing works. Like that kind of drives your practice so much, because I grew up comfortably, but we weren't rich, so I didn't ask my parents for a lot of things. So like the afternoons were for like exploring and imagination and playing with like GI Joes and sticks and like being crafty and with material. And I think it just took us back to our roots in a way. What a lovely circle to the beginning.
It is a good circle. I think it's, you know, it isn't to not have access to those kinds of machines or things like that, at least in, you know, any part of an artist or designer's life is hard, because, you know, your vocabulary is that much stronger. You know, you can obviously decide to reject, you know, working with a CNC.
There you go.
But,
and I would say, go. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, but I think it is important to, you know, to know that exists. And also because like a shit ton of things are made with a CNC. I don't know, you know, like.
No, it's absolutely necessary. But like, this is a moment to like ponder of how much of that we need. Limits can make you limitless in a way.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
I love it.
Wait, so before we end, again, thank you for coming. This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Good.
And I believe that, do you want to plug your ceramic thing that you have started up?
I will not do it just yet because I haven't launched it yet. But when I do launch it, I will let you know. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Give us a taste of what you're planning, so I can look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely been enjoying the stillness of this, of this pandemic. Like I think I'm an extrovert. I was an introvert. Now I'm an extrovert, but I don't know. Just I'm really enjoying being a hermit. Thank you. It took me a long time to figure that out. It really did. I thought for the longest time I was an introvert, and then all of a sudden, like all these people around me were like, "You're an extrovert."
My therapist told me the way you define it is how you recharge. So if you want to recharge alone, you're an introvert. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there's no big deal.
No biggie.
No biggie. But yeah, so this ceramics thing, it's kind of been saving me during this pandemic. Like I sort of slowly just started to make things again. I took a long break for a while. I think I just needed a break from like school and just, everything. But yeah, so I am starting a small brand of different things. It's, mainly a lot of like designed objects that could be considered, art in some way, shape, or form. I'm kind of building this brand to be flexible as I continue as an artist or designer in my life. So, so for right now, I'm spending a lot of time, working a little bit with like leather, also very contested material, and ceramics, and I'm playing with lights, which I'm very excited about. But I'm basically building this so that way, maybe in a year from now, and I'm really on a wood kick, or like, I'm really making like some textiles with some like ceramic inlay.
That's super exciting. That's super exciting.
I think it's a reflection of like, the world that we live in, especially hopefully I'll look back at this interview a year from now or like 10 years from now and think like, you figured it out, kid. But right now, all I see are jobs that are not very hands-on, and a lot of those things I've been trying to, pursue. And so I'm basically trying to set this thing up so that way it becomes a way for me to evolve over time.
That's great. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah. There's so much we can get into even with the leather as a topic, because you went to Pakistan to do this whole thing. Well, this is more fodder for like the next time you're on here. Look forward to leather and figuring out whether vegetable cocktails are going to be the next thing.
Oh my God, they're here. They have happened. It's going to be great. All
right. We'll tell that story next time of whether it'll fix your hangovers or not. All right. So thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for listening.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited to have this podcast. Like, it's been just so fun to listen to you talk to everybody, and like, it makes me feel like I'm back in studio, but then it's also just wonderful to be able to understand, I think, more of what people have been up to, and more of like people's backgrounds, and, like Alex's upbringing. So crazy. So cool. Yeah.
It's like so unique.
It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense.
It does. And even like, I didn't know so much about your upbringing, but like everything kind of like makes sense. And I'm so happy you mentioned the studio thing, because I missed not having the studio chats so much that was one of the like biggest impetus to start this. And now I can have these like wonderful conversations with you guys and even like get to know each other on like a deeper level. It's so great.
Yeah, no, and I think it's very clever, and I hope that, this, I know that you're just starting off, and so I really hope that this kicks up, and, maybe, folks that are thinking about going to school, maybe they'll listen to this, or just so many different people. Yeah, I mean, people who miss studio culture. But anyway, it's I'm very excited that you're doing this.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm excited. I'm happy that you came on here. All right. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you for listening again. Wait.
Oh no, I was going to say, don't actually hang up, because I want to, okay, hold on.
Oh, no, I'm not hanging up.
Okay, good, because I really have to pee, but I still want to talk to you.
I have to pee too. Let me stop this and then we can chat. All right.
Okay.
Okay, bye.